It is, yeah. Hey everyone. So, welcome to the podcast. Today we're in Amsterdam Bos, which is a forest near Amsterdam South, and today we're here with Linas Kondrackis.
Hello.
From Lithuania, who's obviously also in Amsterdam this year, and we met on an Antler startup accelerator, and so we both in the startup worlds brought together in Amsterdam to kind of pursue ideas and businesses. So welcome, and why don't you tell a bit about yourself and also what you're currently doing.
Thanks for having me here. It's always good to get a chance to do something random like this. About myself, normally I'm a roboticist and computer vision engineer. I was on the first cohort of Udacity, got into AI, did a degree in that kind of scattered my skill set around, but then always had a dream of doing something on my own. And a year ago or so I quit my job and just decided to do startups. And long story short, I'm here.
Thank you. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about so your first, I know you did two cohorts, but your first Antler cohort, so what kind of idea that was and what the whole process was for 2 months. Maybe speak also a little bit about your second experience in that cohort and maybe the ideas that you're also currently working on now. So that's a lot of questions, but maybe just go for it.
Yeah, sure. So the thing is, how it started was that I was on startup school, which is YC's program, free online course for learning how to do startups. And I met a team of people there who needed a computer vision engineer. And they were building an app for fitness where, say, you throw your phone into the corner and you do some yoga or some other sport, and it ought to see you and tell you what you're doing wrong with computer vision, with generating the advice with AI or any other way. And with that idea, we applied to Antler and managed to get in. At the time I was traveling, I wasn't at home and didn't have a stable location even, so it was a very good opportunity for me to come and do something like that. And ended up being in Antler. I was representing the team there. The two of them were working remotely. And built the prototype. And by the end of it, though, I realized that the team just doesn't click somehow, It's there's a bit of a friction between us in terms of personality clashes, in terms of the directions we want to take. And despite the team trying to fix itself by the end, I just felt burnt out by the end, I felt. And I think a week before the end of the program, I just quit the team, essentially.
Yeah, there's something about that, isn't it? Team chemistry. Because you guys met virtually, right? So
we did, and we only saw each other for the first time, in real life, basically a week before Antler in London, where I was at the time.
We
just met up.
Yeah.
But in the end, one of the first questions I've asked Antler is can you help me figure out some uncomfortable questions, a list of questions to ask about the team so I can, get to know them better. Is it something Antler mentioned as well a day before or something?
Yeah. Okay, it's interesting. And so how was your second experience of the Antler cohort?
Second experience was interesting because by the end of the program there was one guy at Tarek. I'm not sure if you're going to be talking with him as well. I felt like we really clicked at the end of the first cohort. So, and we really wanted to work together. Walking actually pretty much along this point, like a week or two before the breakup of the team as well, just walking along and just talking about our ideas and kind of just realizing that, hey, we think similarly, but we have complementary skill sets, so it would be cool to work together. And then, we decided to do that. Unfortunately, because he had his reasons, but he had to stay in Warsaw, where he lives, in Poland. And so I was in another situation when I'm working with someone, but they're working remotely and I'm just there on the site representing the team, kind of. I think we didn't manage to generate enough velocity. We said, and we were always happy with each other exploring multiple ideas and trying to work with multiple people, kind of this open relationship almost. But in the end, we both had a few ideas, and we decided, we're just gonna make them clash and may the best idea win, and that's the one we're gonna work on. But we would let the ideas clash, and we'd still end up with two separate ideas. It was not winning. And only at the start of week 4 of Antler, out of 10 weeks or so of the program, did we say, hey, okay, now we can start working on one idea. And by that time, Antler didn't see us progressing much. Antler didn't see the teamwork as much, and also there were some expectation mismatches between us and them. And it's like they're like, nah, just like change the team, change the idea as well. Ideally, we don't buy it. It's also similar to an idea in the previous cohort, and I switched teams. I worked. So the idea we set to work on with Tarek is like take a bunch of random sports and put them into one platform. And by random, I mean the unusual ones that I do, like dodgeball, lightsaber fencing, mega games. There's like 60 people board games with like lots of backstabbing and stuff. That one kind of fell through for the time. Right now I'm back to it actually. We broke up with Tarek. And I worked with Mariella for a bit from the next cohort, and we worked an idea where you take a children's book text and you let the parents or whoever wants to replace the characters, replacing not just like John for like Ben or something, but also changing the genders or even making characters gender neutral, like changing the pronouns. So making a personalized book. And then both in terms of uncertainty around the tech, and we also couldn't weave a very concrete business model, and we couldn't get in contact with our partner publishers. Everyone was telling us that we probably need a publisher to get into this business. Yeah, we kind of didn't manage to make it. Mariella still works on it. I'm a bit not disenchanted, but yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic about it, basically.
Right. Okay, so what are you currently working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm back to this idea of multiple sports. So imagine OneFit, ClassPass, or essentially a sports aggregator, a map with everything happening around you. Very common idea, I know. But apply that to unusual sports. So last week I did dodgeball. Yesterday I did historical fencing with like a long sword, like two-handed sword. Planning to go to Appenkooi, which is, probably I'm mispronouncing it, like this traditional Dutch mini game kind of activity they do in high school, kind of like purely fun oriented. So yeah, show people that side of like sports exists and you don't have to go to the gym. Like I'm even planning to call it No Gym.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, you even got a domain nogym.co, but it's not hosted yet. There's nothing on it.
Yeah. And so where does this interest come from? Like you're interested in kind of, let's say, quirky sports or stuff like that?
Yeah, I was always into it because I think one of the things I value in life above everything else is uniqueness and randomness. And I really love some people like to just go and sit down in the park and have a sun bathing session. Mm-hmm. Like I'd trade that any day to like a nice conversation with someone where I could get just a flow of ideas into my head, things that I can't come up with. Mm-hmm. To me, that's just an intrinsic value and joy, basically. It brings me happiness.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sports as well, yeah. I didn't know that existed. Like, wow, I need to try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you have, you're a highly technical person. So you had a degree in artificial intelligence,
and computer science.
And computer science. Yeah. So I understand you're interested in self-driving cars.
That's how I started with those kind of technologies.
Yeah. So, like, how do you see like the future of technology? Like, both in terms of like perhaps AR, VR, but also in terms of artificial intelligence. Where do you see the applications for AI in the future? It could be like self-driving cars, but it could be other stuff that you're probably more aware of than me. But maybe you could speak about more of your thoughts on this. Big open topic, but yeah.
I mean, I've just been to a meetup where they talk about AI safety and AI killing the world and how much research we need to do until that. But I have to say, I don't know much about it yet. I'm unconvinced myself. In terms of technologies coming to us, I do believe in self-driving cars. I think humans are imperfect in their driving skills, and as much as they can adapt to the situations, the cars will just adapt to the other ones and eventually reach feature parity with humans. When that's going to happen, I'm not going to make those predictions. I've tried before, I failed, that's it. I'm out of that game. Don't want to even play in the predictions market for that.
Yeah.
In terms of, so I don't think anyone doubts self-driving cars will be here in some form at some point.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the unique aspects of that people would not be thinking.
Yeah.
And that could be, like someone posted it, suppose space in the cities is an issue, parking space. I still like, someone posted an opinion that maybe it's going to be the case that we're just going to have fleets of empty roaming cars, and they're roaming just because electricity is cheap enough for them to do that, and parking is expensive.
Yeah.
Just like a whole city infested with zombie cars, essentially.
Right.
Or the outskirts of the city, where the cars all just go onto the quiet roads.
Yeah. And so what do you think about the different leading companies in self-driving? So obviously you've got Tesla, but you also got Comma AI with George Hotz, Waymo. Well, obviously there's going to be an Apple car apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe what do you think of these different companies, and who do you think will lead the race?
Yeah. In this case, I think I care more about the technology rather than companies and their progress so far.
Yeah.
I just don't think I care enough. And I'm just not that well informed. The way I see it, like, I think Tesla is leading the charge. I think Waymo is like either the second or the number one. I see startups in the UK popping up, like Wave AI. Went for an interview with them as well. It's like they're doing end-to-end deep learning, just raised like $500 million maybe like several hundred million for their cars. There's 5AI, which I think is one of the older ones and bigger. Probably has like 200 people by now. Self-driving car startup in the UK. But I'm just really not sure about the progress. In my opinion, they probably get stuck at reliability after a certain percentage of when they can't predict what the car is going to do in all the circumstances.
Yeah, okay. So what do you find the most interesting technology for self-driving? Would it be Comma AI or?
Interesting technology in terms of what's been developed so far? I have no clue.
Okay.
I care more about within this, I care more about the fun of working with certain technologies, say localization and creating maps of the 3D world and finding yourself in it.
Okay.
But I've not really been following the progress of where that's at these days.
Sure. Okay.
Like it's things AI applied to say image generation, text generation, the GPT-3, and AI applied to playing games is just way more visible the way I see it.
Yeah. I think he was at the CEO of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, I think. He spoke a little about this. He said AI is most developed in terms of gaming. So whatever gaming heads, that's where AI is most prominent or most innovative. So obviously chess, in Go, AlphaGo, what they made.
StarCraft as well.
Yeah, so games seem to lead the charge whenever there's some sort of innovation that's required. Games kind of have that criteria of saying, present this to the user, but do it in an extremely dynamic way using AI.
I feel like it's because there's simulation, that's one, and that there's some better hints towards a clear reward function. So simulation, you can play years and years of games very quickly on multiple servers. You just need to scale horizontally and just get more servers in many cases. Of course, there's complications. How do you put the agents you train against one another and so on? But essentially, if you had a lot of compute, you can solve it. Could solve it. With cars, yeah, you can get a bunch of data, but you can't simulate traffic accidents well enough, I think. It just feels like a very continuous space of actions of what could happen. Like, simulate everything that that hasn't happened before, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
How the hell do you do that?
Yeah, it's a very tricky problem. It's almost like you need a controlled environment along with the cars. Kind of, there's so many different variables you need to think about. It's almost like you need almost a designer, a road and system alongside the cars, so the cars don't have to think about so many variables rather than just it's very complicated, I think.
I'd love that to be a solution. Like, I have no idea how much roads cost, but
yeah.
it just feels like surely there has to be a way to invent a primitive enough system that it's not that expensive, and almost a traffic light system, but somehow differently.
Okay.
But also reinforcement learning, like the more I think in between points you have in terms of specifying an okay enough reward function, the better. It's like, hey, you would destroy the unit of your enemy, like that's probably good. Or like that's a discrete event that happened. With driving, you passed this traffic light successfully, and maybe it's good enough, but you can't simulate millions of that easily.
We're now in the sun, so maybe let's move to the right. Right. Let's go over and plant it down.
Good enough?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So do you see any other major applications for AI apart from self-driving in the future, or is that sort of open for
content generation? I think I was worried about this before. I'm still worried about it. All of those. I don't know, like many of the financial and like crypto reports are just not written by humans anymore.
Sure.
And probably read by the bots as well. It's like,
okay,
is that useful?
That's an interesting topic. Yeah.
In terms of I think AI can be persuasive by now. It's been long since they passed Turing test.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Talks of sentience as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's something quite interesting about that, like being able to almost collect someone's data and almost clone them in such a way that they would represent you, whether that be speaking via messaging. Like I could speak to like a clone of Linus online, and then potentially you answer back exactly the same way. So that's kind of a interesting area. But so what do you think about like the ethics of AI? I mean, that's also a very broad topic, but and also we're very, very far away from like killing machines or killing AI. But
some people would dispute that.
Oh, okay.
But maybe I'm talking to very specific people. Then again, I haven't read their argumentation, which I need to. Still got a tab open. Ethics of AI. Starting from, hey, self-driving cars in dangerous situations, if you had to make a choice, should you be allowed to kill the driver and whatnot? I don't care enough.
Okay.
I feel like technology is a tool, and we assume a certain risk when flying the planes. As long as we can put the risk to a certain low enough level, I would be willing to give control to the AI or whatever their reasoning is, as long as it feels like statistically improbable to happen still. And it solves some of my problems by reducing the risk to begin with for me. It's long. In terms of AI ethics, for example, in developing AI and seeing it as a super weapon that either will help dictators or something to mass control the population, or automatically manage weapon systems, pick targets. Like every single area in this one feels like its own domain. In terms of weaponry, we use drones that are manned by humans these days, but fully autonomous ones, would that make a major difference?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, something about that. So
Yeah, is the laptop on or not?
yeah, it's on. It is on.
Okay.
Yeah. Humble beginnings. Yeah.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah. So yeah, there's something about that. Is kind of our machine, or could machines be more evil than man? But man kind of has to make the decision at the end of the day.
No, so the problem is, and this is where AI safety comes into the way I understand it, it's you don't call them evil, you call them misaligned, which means the incentives they have are misaligned with what humans have. So you can make a machine and AI with a target of like, hey, increase everyone's happiness, but what if it decides that the humanity is to blame for the lack of happiness? And this is an extremely oversimplified position, but they can make decisions you don't expect that maximize the goal, but harm everything else in the process.
Right.
And they call it paperclip maximizers, for example.
Right.
A system that of whole purpose of it is to just increase the output of paperclips in a factory.
Oh, okay, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard of that.
Manages to get out, gets access to more resources. It still maximizes paperclips and does more. Also a super simplified example, but it's kind of like the very start of how to think about these things. I think.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So you're a programmer. So very good one. So are there kind of like interesting technologies that like are in trend right now, or you think will be popular in the future? This could be anything from web frameworks or mobile frameworks, or it could be certain AI libraries that I think might be popular in the future. Yeah.
Copilot is obviously the one.
Copilot, yeah.
I'm very much an advocate for that. Changed my programming habits in like 1 or 2 weeks. Like
sure.
Almost, and I'm coding differently.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
As in, you write a function, you think, oh, it's gonna suggest the types I need to put on the variables, speed things up by a little bit, and then bam, writes the whole function for you.
Yeah.
From not even the full name of it, and by understanding the context, and it's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. So just to explain to the viewers, so Copilot it basically writes code for you, essentially based on a library, and it's compiled using all the data from GitHub. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Maybe not all of the data. They try to be ethical about it, but there were some backlashes as well, of learning from people's code. Like there was a tweet of someone trying to recreate a specific inverse square function, square root function, from Quick, and the AI just wrote that, including I think the license of the file, of like copyright this and that, person's name.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was like, oh, this illustrates all of the negative sides of this technology in one concise GIF.
Okay. Yeah. That's something interesting. So now they can obviously write code for us. So in the future, you can potentially write. Once it starts writing self-writing programs, I think that's kind of, and it starts learning from that, how it writes code, and it just keeps getting better and better at writing code.
It can already do that in the sense that I've seen a paper, I haven't read it fully. I've seen a paper that AI can learn how to write better code using the AI generated code.
Wow, okay.
And I think it itself generates code and learns from it somehow, but I haven't read into it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting field, like how you direct where the AI is going to optimize. So you could optimize it to help mankind, but then if you do the complete opposite, that could potentially be worrying. Yeah.
So recent things that I've looked into it, and you might not know about, and it's happening pretty fast. So I've looked into GPT-3, which is you start writing text and give directions to the AI, and it continues writing it, like replace Charlotte's Web with a horror story or something like that.
Okay.
It does its best at doing that.
Does its best,
basically.
okay.
Then I've tested image generation with DALL-E 2, Mid-Journey, not Stable Diffusion, and I've tested voice cloning, where you speak and your voice is overridden by a voice in the library that they have. It's like, it's interesting. They changed my voice into like a female voice, and it kind of sounds okay.
Okay.
Or you can say woof woof woof, and they change that into a dog bark.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Respeecher from Ukraine. Really cool guys.
Oh, wow,
What I found is that, so to generate images, you have to create a prompt of like sequences of words that will generate something. And by now there's marketplaces for prompts. You can just buy one. You see the end result and you just buy the sequence of words that generated it.
Oh, wow.
And there's books about it for how to write the prompts.
Oh, wow.
And before, like a year ago, for example, there were some tricks. Say, if you want something to be in very high resolution, at the end you either say like 1920 x 1080 or like HD or ultra realistic. But also there was the Unreal Engine trick where you just say Unreal Engine and it renders it as if it, or like paints it as if it was rendered by Unreal Engine, which had very high quality demos. So you get high quality.
Oh, okay.
So you see Dali's painting in Unreal Engine.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So
But yeah, prompt design is a big thing now.
Yeah.
At least for a while.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I look forward to like seeing like where it heads in the future. I think it's a fascinating field or area to be part of. Yeah.
I mean, give me a web app in React that does X and Y and Z. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe in a year's time we'll have that already.
Right.
It's like fuck web designers.
Yeah.
Web developers.
Yeah. I think there's something interesting with the economics of the internet and web. So obviously. Stuff like Apple and Google taking almost 30% cut, and then there's kind of almost a shift towards web applications because of the economics involved. I think that's something that could be interesting in the future, like how economics plays a part in where engineers develop and where engineers focus their energies on. I think that's going to be quite interesting in the future. Yeah.
Well, to some extent, praise capitalism and praise the competition.
Right.
Because that made things cheap, as well as like people inventing things. But then again, Heroku just cancelled its free tier.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
One of the historically easiest ways to have a free server.
Yes.
For your web apps.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I used Heroku once to develop like a side project. It was great. It was free.
Oh, hello. Doggos.
Hello. Hello. It's going to get tangled up now. It's going to tangle up the wires. Ready? Humble beginnings.
I mean, it's better that way, the way I see it. Hey?
Okay, yeah.
Cat walks into your room, remote work.
That's quite a cute dog, though. It's kind of
snarty. Are you a dog person yourself?
I want a dog in the future. Yeah. I think it's... I don't have the time or resources to own a dog right now, but maybe if I have a family, then I'll probably have a dog one day.
Okay, so family first, dog second.
Yeah, exactly. I can't take care of myself at the moment, so I need to take care before I take care of a dog. So you're a programmer, so that's so obviously that requires high focus and concentration. So can you tell the viewer about like how you work? So what are your daily rituals? Like, let's start off with like what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, what do you start off the morning with? Do you start with coffee or anything like that, and just go through your whole working day that suits you?
Yeah, so I'm a pretty scattered person. I found that in many cases I work best at 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. or so. It's like my golden hours. No one's around, everyone's tired, no one's bothering me, I can just sit there and code. Ideally, I'd start the day with more of people-oriented tasks. Like yesterday, I just messaged and organized my various sports activities for my startup ventures. And then by the end of the day, I could sit down and code something. Ideally, I like to have my schedule as open as possible so I can make choices. I'm definitely far from plan ahead type, really. And in many cases, I do relish in being able to find the moments where I just get into the zone and code. Because I feel like the more coding you do, in many cases, the more you're inclined to do more of it. So I can fall into like 12-hour days sometimes, but I just have to start. I just have to start doing it.
Yeah.
And I just don't like reprioritizing until I just get something done. And then I walk around for a week and think what I can do next, plan ahead, sketch things, and then sit down and just do massive amounts of work.
Yeah. And so for focusing for such long time periods, how do you like to do? Just in silence, or would you listen to music? Or?
Music, yeah. So, okay, silence helps, but it's only for the extreme focus situations where it's either something very difficult, algorithmic, or I don't know an answer already, or I haven't sketched out the plan for what I'm going to do. But in many cases, I try to be in the position where I know what I'm doing. I just need to hammer it out a little bit and react to any future ideas I have on the side, kind of, as I'm doing it. And for that, I like my music. I like, in general, it's maybe a bit too big of a tangent, but yeah, I don't like lyrical music. Historically, I could never hear the lyrics, kind of. And I like just the music itself, I guess, or rather vocals are just another layer of music to me. And I like repetitive stuff as well, which helps in programming. Somehow just this repetition, this rhythm you just get into. Sometimes it's the same song on repeat. You just get into it, until you forget that you're listening to something
right.
in the first place.
And what type of music do you like?
My core is electro, but these days I'm very much on a heavy metal phase.
Yeah.
And then there's random bounces into actually lyrical stuff, which I said I don't like, but like Regina Spektor and whatnot. Okay. Yeah, I like randomness, I guess.
Yeah.
I like the variety. Chill step sometimes, as well.
Yeah. There's something about listening to music in just any kind of activity, whether it be cooking or running or just working. I think there's some meditative quality to it, I think.
Well, I don't like cooking. I prefer to listen to audiobooks if I cook.
Oh, okay, yeah. And what do you like to read, or what are you reading right now, actually?
Right now, just finished Cold Start Problem and Mom's Test for the startup of one's about how to create an idea where there's a marketplace involved and market effects, how to kickstart supply, demand, and complications with that. Mom Test is about talking to users, very quick, to the point book. I went through in the last 2 years a random selection of books of A Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, like a book about illnesses of the right hemisphere of the brain, Oliver Sacks. Atlas Shrugged, which is like a romantic capitalism book. A Christian book for variety's sake. Then got really into Warhammer, which is this space opera, but without too much depth. But it's kind of nice for the background. Epic voices. Makes me a better speaker, I think, as well. Just exposure to different kinds of narrators. Bit of everything.
So, that kind of brings on to the next question. So you're very into games in general, maybe Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer Mega Games.
I do that, but it's not the majority of the activities I do. It's very easy to make an impression that I do, because I can get very passionate about it, but though I'm into game design and comparing, I suppose I am, in the sense that I'm into understanding what the games are built off, what the building blocks are, and comparing those, even when I don't play those games. So I watch Age of Empire videos, I watch Warcraft videos, and some new games come out. I just like observing the mechanics.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And so I'm really interested in this. So could you speak a little about just how you grew up? Your early childhoods. So I was one of those very shy kids. I still consider myself that, even though by now, am I even? I don't know. Heavily introverted, INTJ personality type. By now INTP. Basically, where do I
begin? How do I lay out this story? So, a defining feature of my childhood is that every summer we'd be kind of exiled into a forest cottage in the forest.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You live in the forest with just your grandparents that go live there during the summer as well, and it's pretty boring there. And as a shy kid, I'm even afraid to go to the library to get a book or something. So I just read everything I find. Spend a lot of time on my own, but then a cousin of mine pops up 6 years after me, kind of.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time together, just like playing ball games, running around the forests, kind of, talking about a bunch of things. I'd also like draw games for her to play, and I'd reenact being like a boss that she can fight and like throw balls at me and whatnot. We'd have special powers. A lot of that was spent in this relative solitude, basically, in the forest, where it's I don't know, I wish I could be home and, I don't know, sit on my computer or something instead, but no chance of that. So I guess I like nature because of it, but it's still a bit of a sense of wasted time. And I think, take that, and also so my parents, dad's a sysadmin for a large supermarket chain in Lithuania and like a few other countries called Maxima. Mom used to design patterns for like fabric for suits. Like worked with Armani and Hugo Boss at one point as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But at the same time, I just felt like, I don't know, they're normal people who just have their own lives, do their own thing, but it doesn't feel like life changes much. So I felt a bit bored in that sense as well. And there came a point in my life where I just started like revolting against the standard, against the chill, against the not doing anything fancy. I don't know. And I think I'm still on that wave of basically like, I just want to do things.
Right
now.
Yeah.
I spent the years being like heavily introverted as well and just digging into myself. The rationalist community that I'm part of is kind of about that. But in the end as well, like someone close to me started revolting against that, and I kind of see their point. Yeah, but that's a different story.
Right. And so when you were growing up, so like, what sort of interest did you have? How did you get into computers? Was it from a young age or? Oh
yeah, there's pictures of me like reaching for a keyboard.
Okay. Yeah.
When I could barely walk.
Yeah.
My dad assembled a computer very early on. He studied microchip design.
Okay.
Way in the ages past. And yeah, I did start off kind of playing computer games and knowing a bunch of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Do I see that as a positive thing? I don't know, to some extent. Kind of sparked my sense of fantasy.
Yeah. So you mentioned INTJ, introverted personality. But there's not much control over that. But were there experiences back in childhood where you think it kind of helped shape who you are? Were there like periods of just?
I got 10 cents or like a bus ticket worth of money taken from me forcefully in like and like what, 2nd, 3rd grade, and then I was afraid of people for a little bit after that.
Okay.
I know I was like way more talkative before then and kind of shut down after that a little bit as like a childhood trauma thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have found like we used to write these memoirs of like when you finish a year in school of like well wishes and like memoirs from your primary school kids, and some would say like, hey, Linas is funny and but he's a bit quiet, so maybe I was quiet before that as well, so I don't know, I'm just confused.
Okay, sure.
But in terms of introversion, lots of solitude I think does shape that.
Okay.
It's is a defense mechanism against that, but I don't know, maybe there's a genetic thing as well.
Sure. Okay, interesting, yeah. And so, could you also speak about just like what Lithuania is like in general? There's probably a lot of viewers who have not been there.
Yeah. So I'm very bad at selling that because I always begin like, I go on swamp hikes, and everyone imagines swamps.
Okay.
No, so Lithuania, to me, feels like by now it's a very Western country, especially if you go to the capital. We have one of the fastest internets in the world, and people are very chill. I would compare it to Bristol to some extent, if anyone's ever been there, which is a city which is pretty vibrant. There's graffiti everywhere. You see that people are very diverse in what they do and what personalities they have. Moving away from the center, yeah, your laptop's gone again. Moving away from the center of the country, say, I think in many of these post-Soviet states or like non-very Western countries, you do start getting this culture of, like this power culture of, feels like many people just want to get a car, like are wearing 3 Adidas stripes, they just smoke cigarettes. There's this a bit of like macho culture.
Okay.
Slavic macho culture.
Sure.
Even though we're not Slavic.
Yeah.
But that is kind of dying down, and I'm like, I don't know. To be fair, having lived in like 4 cities in the UK, here in Amsterdam, and then a few months in Lisbon, I still prefer Lithuania over in terms of life quality.
Okay. Why is that?
I find I like the variety of people I meet in the capital, and lots of Tinder matches. So.
Oh, okay. That's always nice. Yeah. And just so interesting. Where do you think this Slavic macho culture comes from?
So, if you believe my grandma, it's like people used to not drink in between the 2 world wars, and like because that's when Lithuania popped back on the map after the First World War.
Okay.
And it was a culture that was coming back up, and like it's a rebirth, I guess. And so far, I am inclined to believe that that when the Russians came, they brought in a culture of drinking, which we still, I think, have, and it's a bit annoying, in my opinion. And in terms of, I think, my opinion, I think, ultimately, is that when times are rough, it requires for rough people to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that does leave a bit of a culture that, if you're not powerful enough, you're gonna be taken advantage of because everyone's hustling, everyone's struggling to survive.
Right.
And the remnants of that don't leave a good mark on the country, the identity of a nation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was born, police, in 1994, police, called commissariati, police departments, essentially, buildings were still exploding because we had an internal mafia that we kind of were at war with, that were trying to like scavenge after the fall of Soviet Union in a fresh formed country.
Yeah.
But I think we cleaned up pretty fast. But still, perilous times, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Certainly now, anyway, perilous times.
Yeah, we're back to that to some extent, yeah.
Yeah. So, could you also speak about? So you've got this idea now, a startup. You're also applying to different applications for investors or accelerator programs. So, in the future, so say in like 10 or 15 years' time, do you have kind of a vision of how or where you'd like to be?
To some extent. I have a vague vision of the skill set I want to have, and I do believe that it was one of the better decisions of my life to just quit my job and just go into startups, even though I haven't achieved much yet, but I'm happy to burn the money I have as well to get these skill sets and get these experiences. I do want to get better at execution, essentially, of taking an idea and bringing it to life. And in terms of what tangible material assets I would have 10 years from now, I'd want to make something profitable and profitable enough to sustain me and, say, at least 10 more people. Beyond that, my ambitions would be iterative, basically. I feel like I am ambitious, and if I do see the chance to go for something bigger, I will. But at the same time, some of the ideas, like this one with unusual sports, no gym idea, I just wanted to succeed even if it's a lifestyle business that doesn't bring me that much profit, let's just say. As long as I'm not in the red, it's still okay.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
But no clear. I'm gonna own a house. I'm gonna have a family, have 3 cats, and
Yeah.
I don't care enough. I'm spending the time right now, and I think I'm in a very good place.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so, if leading on to the next question, so if money was not an issue, what do you think you would work on, or would you not work at all?
I would not work at all for the bit, but then it becomes very dangerous. So money is kind of not an issue for me right now, was not up until recently.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm burned through a year of savings, but like half a year. I might be the guy who just lives in a forest and builds drones or something.
Okay.
I definitely go back into exploring computer vision projects.
Yeah.
Right now, I just have this guilt of like learning these things without having a clear, defined payoff, and that stopped me from like getting better at what I do. And it's like, yeah. But I'd want to investigate a bit more of that. I find it easy to be lazy, which is what I'm trying to fight. But I could be more selective for the projects that I'm doing. No gym would be one of these, regardless, yeah.
Right.
Even if it doesn't bring me money, I'd maybe even subsidize it. If money was not an issue, I'd make it free for everyone. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, algorithmic research and development, research into people, and just like networking way more. And by now, I am very much into just meeting people and just learning what they do. Maybe I'll do what you're doing right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have many material needs right now, I think. I'd want to eat better food, but that's plus 20% costs to my current ones at most.
Yeah.
I care about exploring people's inner worlds more than I care about achieving wealth. Maybe a bit of traveling, for as much as I don't like it actually. It feels like I can just Google the places.
Right.
I'd travel only for the people. Maybe I should still do it just because you end up with very good experiences. So
Right.
I can't argue against the results, the outcomes of it.
Right. Okay. So, have you traveled a lot?
I did one solo trip to 4 locations, and then I went with my friends a little bit, and then I'd go skiing with my family every year, essentially.
Okay.
Sometimes to Croatia.
Sure.
I haven't done many trips with friends or solo.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not much an avid traveler yet.
Okay. So next question would be: so you're obviously a motivated, driven person who's got a fair amount of experiences. Is there any advice that you would give to someone, like a young person, maybe coming up in the world, whether that be in life or career or anything else of that?
So the problem with this kind of advice is it's like knowing your audience. The first thing is I want to ask them about what they do, what they want to do, what they like, what they don't like, Get a sense of direction they want to get in. Because basically, in terms of general advice, don't end up working on something that pays well, but brings you further or does not get you closer to your career goals. If you do C++, but you want to be a computer vision developer, you'll be seen as C++ developer from then on.
Sure.
Even if you learn your stuff.
Okay.
Which there's ways to avoid of getting better at interviews and doing side projects, but it still will take extra time to find the shortcuts from the other end to get back on track.
Sure. So essentially, don't waste your time. Just follow what you're interested in.
Don't go for the money first unless you're very desperate for it.
Sure.
Go for skills first, ideally.
Okay. Skills first. Okay.
Money second.
Okay. Money second. Okay.
People third.
People third. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think being proactive is generally good, and it took me a few years, and I'm still learning how to go and do stuff around the world. Because I think Steve Jobs was right, everything around you is just built by people who are like you. They were just I'm just gonna go do stuff,
Yeah.
As you said to me this morning, You just do stuff and then things happen. So
Yeah.
even if it's bad in quality to begin with, but you can execute.
Yeah, there's something about just going out of your room and just doing stuff, and the world will just kind of almost make the decisions for you, rather than you. So it's like you compare someone's day compared to stuck in a room compared to someone that just goes out and do stuff. It's kind of like, obviously it's a large difference, but it's almost like you go out and do stuff and kind of going into like determinism and stuff like that, but kind of stuff kind of just happens to you, despite you there's many dogs here. But it's something kind of interesting about just going out and just stuff will happen to you rather than...
I would expand that and potentially disagree, especially when you said stuck in a room. Because, for example, I have a good friend of mine, does PhD in AI. He at some point realized, many people spend their times on the internet just talking to people they're never gonna see. And he said, I realized I like that. I like doing that.
Right.
And I don't mind having a lifestyle like that.
Yeah.
And I think he can be very productive and form genuine connections with people he just never sees. And you can still achieve great things even if you're stuck in a room.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's I've seen, and I was like that myself, it's like it does cause social anxiety eventually. Your other skills dull. So
Doesn't have a dog?
I think it's, to be fair, even a good skill set to be able to like sit down and focus and get stuff done in your room.
Yeah.
Without distractions.
Sure.
Or avoiding them. But as long as you can consciously say that you're not avoiding weaknesses that you could be tackling otherwise. Yeah. Getting out, meeting people, getting a date or something.
All the good stuff.
But for some people, maybe getting themselves stuck in a room might be beneficial because they would learn. They are avoiding getting stuck in a room, where maybe that's a good skill set they could develop. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And so, leading on to a more philosophical question, or deeper, very deep. Could be.
Go for that.
So what do you think is essentially the meaning of life in general? Or do you think there's no meaning? Or you're still searching for it yourself, you're not quite sure?
Meaning of life is, it's a privileged position to not deal with suffering every day, and many people are not in that position. I think a noble goal, not necessarily the meaning of life, but a noble goal everyone could have, is to get the world into a state of, I guess, post-scarcity, they call it these days. It's like, so people no longer have to fight against nature. My belief is that humanity has been struggling against nature for many, many years, and now we're much better at that, but we're not done yet. And finishing that mission would be nice.
Okay.
In terms of meaning of life, I ask that question every week to someone, and I think I should stop, because it's like never gives good enough answers.
Yeah.
I think that, to me, the meaning of my life, for example, is I like developing myself, and I want to be as perfect as I can get, whatever that means, including changing the notion of what that means, experiencing as many opinions and touching on the thoughts of as many other people as I can, and being able to generate random ideas that did not exist in the past.
Right.
All of these sound very much up my alley, kind of, and I guess drawing from that, to me, the definition of meaning of life is whatever satisfies you, whatever resonates with your internal values.
Right. So be interesting to hear. So you asked a lot of people about meaning of life. What do they say, like, in general?
One of the common answers is to help other people, which is like, fine, okay. Are you thinking deep enough? Maybe you are. I don't know. I'm not gonna judge, even though I am. Some people say, I don't know. Some people say to have fun, purely hedonistic perspective.
Uh-huh.
I don't recall anything extremely out of the ordinary, I think, in terms. Follow-up questions. I don't have examples, but I think cause deeper conversations and thought. But yeah, you need to like essentially make it more concrete.
Okay.
Until people open up.
Okay.
And find what they actually think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So to you, it's a lot about optimizing. Okay, it depends on the person, but for you, it's about optimizing yourself and who you are, but also about just, you mentioned suffering, just kind of maybe
I want it
alleviating
to be about that, but
Yeah.
I can't find the agency in myself and the level of care to help people on there to reduce the suffering. Even though by now I see that's a noble cause.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
ought to be working on it, I think.
Okay.
It's okay.
There's something quite interesting about like this kind of humanity's kind of like striving. The challenge is almost required for humans in order to feel some sort of purpose. Like you need some sort of something to strive for in order to feel like you're having an impact or value on planet Earth.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
When you said in order to have a value on the earth, that's the thing. Many people don't have that as a goal, essentially.
Yeah.
I have many people who are like, oh, I just want to live life and have fun. And to them, minimizing the suffering is just not a criterion, kind of.
Right.
Or rather, sorry, that can be a very strong criterion for them. But working hard and struggling is just not a thing they aim for. And I think, so like, take Gary Vee, the struggle porn, and like you have to struggle to build a startup, like grind.
Yeah.
That's the one side of the coin that's, I think, is just really unnecessary.
Yeah.
The post-scarcity world that I imagine, and I'm a fan of universal basic income, the humans depicted as they were in WALL-E, where it's like a fat person on like a reclining chair just driven to the food.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's okay because I want people ultimately to just be able to be what I am, and in the sense that I can do whatever I want, and I can, with some like, okay, I don't have maybe enough money sometimes, but like I can think the thoughts I want, I can go do random things, I don't need to think about my suffering day to day. And if I want to be lazy, I can be.
Sure.
And I want to enable humanity to be that.
Yeah.
And then GDP growth can be driven by like more ambitious people who want to do more, or people who want to be more, maybe earn more money. I don't think everyone should be exactly equal, but yeah, why not? If someone wants to struggle a bit more, yeah, sure. Whatever floats your goat. If you want to be a lazy slob, yeah, why not? Just like have fun.
Sure.
I think that's the end goal of humanity, the way I see it.
Okay.
And like, yeah, we'd have billionaires, we'd have like people who are average, but the average won't suffer the billionaires. Well, they would to some extent deserve it.
Right.
Proportions are like up for debate.
So I think maybe there's a potential future that robots will do a lot of the like manual or labor work in the future. So it could be like farming or just essentially what you mentioned. So getting universal basic income, but all the food's taken care of. We don't have to like sit in an office and do Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So do you? If that was a case, do you think it would be like WALL-E, or do you think humanity could flourish? Like we could do more creative pursuits, or do you think it might be a combination? So people choose to do that, or people can choose to be just like in WALL-E. Yeah.
I think I see where gaming is taking humanity, and I think it's a largely negative thing. But at the same time, no. But yeah, and it's kind of pushing people, I think, to be more WALL-E-like. We're all addicted to our smartphones and the content we observe, and that's kind of the WALL-E situation already.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorting out the food needs is like nice,
Yeah.
and everyone being fat, but this kind of like enslaving everyone's attention is where my theory falls apart, I think. And where I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that, like, I guess the internet was initially created to create a place for like helping, like collaboration within a community.
Yeah.
For
Military.
Yeah, so without any kind of economic incentive initially, but unfortunately the bills have to be paid, and then that's where advertising kind of stepped in and kind of provided free services, but then unfortunately at the expense of one of our most valuable resources, which is time and attention.
I mean, if you look into so okay, I'm a man of one paper. I'm not well read in this case. I've read, I think, an abstract of a paper saying that Neanderthals, or at least like one of the branches of early humanity, hunter-gatherer societies in general, I think. No, it was not that. It was about a study of the tribes they have these days still. Like, how much time did they spend actually doing something?
Right.
And they found that they spent like very little. Like most of the time was just labeled as like doing nothing, essentially. Just loitering around. So I think as humans we are predetermined to be unproductive to some extent, as long as we survive, to save energy.
Yeah, it's like doing the quickest and easiest thing at the time, or kind of optimizing for certain things, like the dopamine response, and just trying to. It sounds kind of silly, just optimizing for that. In a way it's smart, but then it's a very flawed design.
Or saving energy. But then again, it's flawed as long as you have suffering. Like, take out suffering from all of the equations everywhere, all of a sudden. Is it still worth striving for something better and greater?
Yeah.
Is it just work for work's sake because you have to be busy, because you have to build a bigger company?
Yeah, I don't think evolution took into account that in the future we could just press a button and get a dopamine response from it. They kind of, I think, kind of nature expected us to do something difficult and then get the dopamine response. Unfortunately, they didn't think about the technology.
Then again, maybe that's the thing. Take someone's life at the end of their lifetimes and count the regrets they have. Maybe the next step after post-scarcity is regret minimization at the end. So that's what we need to solve, essentially. And suppose we could, philosophically, take out all of the suffering and all of the regrets out of life. To me, that would imply that whatever they did in life was worth it. And if that meant pressing a button, they were happy doing it. Like, they had no regrets and they were not suffering. Like, even though philosophically my culture tells me, like, oh, you ought to like greatness and strive for greatness. Is that what's best for humanity? Yeah.
Interesting topic there. And so it's just something that's come in mind. So I'll ask you, what do you think about? So do you think we're living in a simulation? Why or why not?
The only argument again I had heard that was persuasive in that sense is that it ought to be. How was it? I think it said it ought to be simpler and simpler to build arbitrarily complex simulation over time, and given infinite space and infinite time almost, it's just very unlikely that someone hasn't built one. It's just argument based on like infinite improvements and reduction of complication. But I don't know. I don't care. I do not know how to distinguish simulation versus non-simulation and how that would impact me, and that's why I find it hard to reason about it or care about it. In many cases, I'm very much an instrumentalist. If a piece of knowledge is immediately applicable and helpful to me, that's how I view rationality as well, then I like it. But theoretically, I draw a line beyond which I do not venture, kind of.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So, that's another question. So, do you believe there's life beyond planet Earth? Do you think there is intelligent life?
So it's something that is in the Rationality A to Z, the rationalist movement, this specific example, where they said it's maybe feels romantic to feel that to say that something exists, like, oh, surely aliens exist. But why do you go for romantic answers as opposed to something that you can clearly state with more certainty? For example, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that did change my mind in this. Why would I be proud of believing in something that I can't answer until I can answer it? Unless it prompts me to look for answers, but in this case it does not, then yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a sensible answer, actually. We've not seen anything to suggest otherwise that there should be life. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that's probably the best answer you could give, actually.
Yeah, and then depends on like how much you dig into simplest answers are the best to hold. Yeah, Bayes' rule. What? Which knife? Occam's razor.
Okay.
Yeah. Occam's razor.
Yeah. So I think the sun's come out again, but this seems like a good time to wrap up the podcast.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time and just speaking about your thoughts on various topics. So yeah, and all the best for whichever endeavour you choose to pursue. And
hopefully no gym works out, but if not, we'll see. Hey,
exactly.
Hopefully I can bring random sports to all the people around the world all of a sudden.
Do you have any like websites on No Gym that you want to talk about, or
nogym.co?
Nogym.co.
That's where it's going to be.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you can check it out there, and have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you.